Hello and welcome to Note Doctors Summer Shorts. My name is Paul.
My name is Jenn.
My name is Ben.
And we are your hosts. We are all university music theory instructors who are passionate about music theory and music theory instruction. In these short episodes, we will be sharing with each other and all of you musical examples and teaching tips covering a wide range of topics. So if you want to know more about music theory and the most effective and innovative ways to teach it, this is the podcast for you. Hello and welcome back to Note Doctors Summer Shorts. So it is summertime, so we are not going to be interviewing guests, but we are going to spend some time today recapping a little bit of the Pedagogy into Practice conference that was held in beautiful Norman, Oklahoma at the University of Oklahoma during the end of May. So I think it was like end of May to beginning of June. So we had an episode that came out a couple weeks ago where you all could hear our own presentation at that conference, but we thought we would do a little short where we would talk about some of the amazing things that we learned and ideas that we gleaned from some of the presentations. Unfortunately, we're not going to be able to mention all the presentations that we went to. This is a summer short, not a summer long. So we had to abbreviate it a little bit. So if we don't mention your presentation, if you're listening out there, please don't take offense. There was so much goodness. And again, if you've never been to this conference, please avail yourself to this conference in 2 years. It's a wonderful time. It's a great group of people, and you will leave energized and maybe even a little sad that you're coming back in June and can't get into the classroom for another couple months because all those new ideas are so fresh and you want to implement them right away. So we have broken our kind of conversation here into two categories. So some items that we want to try, ideas that we want to try right away, teaching techniques or things that came up in presentations. And then we're also going to talk about more kind of big picture, kind of philosophical ideas that came up that have really got us thinking in different ways. So let's start off with the practical, the nitty gritty. What are you taking from any of these presentations, Jenn or Ben, and trying to put into your classroom?
So many things. First of all, there were a lot of great sessions that introduced us to new repertoire or reminded us of, I'm a horn player, so I would love to forget every Sousa march I've ever played because we just play offbeats for the whole time. But there was a great presentation on using marches, how you can use them to teach sentences and form and things like that. And it's a lot of times it's pieces that students have played. They've played them in high school band. They've played them or they've heard them at, a Memorial Day parade or something like that. So it's music that they're familiar with. Where you can tackle some of those more sort of classical style compositional ideas, but it doesn't have to be in a piano sonata or something. Mm-hmm. I enjoyed that a lot. That was Samantha Inman. There was I'm teaching form this fall. So a lot of those I made notes on for that class. And also there was a session on really breaking down the process of writing an analytical paper into step by step by step by step. In a way that encourages the students to really engage and write the paper themselves and not, look for other ways of doing it, and where the project is spread out across the entire semester, week by week or every other week, having portions of it due that relate back to something that they're doing at that time. That was a really fantastic and useful one that I will certainly be using.
Yeah, that was a try to beat ChatGPT.
Yes. She also was hilarious. She had some great, there were great kind of, visuals in her presentation as well that were quite funny.
And so that was a good one because it acknowledged the fact that students can basically find almost anything online. Like she talked about, and we're talking about, I don't know how to pronounce her last name.
DeGize, maybe?
Susan DeGize. She's at Texas A&M Corpus Christi. So, Susan, I'm so sorry if we butchered your last name, but your presentation was amazing. And it acknowledged the fact that, if you have them analyze a Haydn, sonata, they can just Google Haydn sonata analysis. The exact number and they'll get all that information right off the bat. And so she selected, I can't even remember the name of the composer, something with an S and a lot of consonants.
Smnushka. I also kind of can't read my handwriting, but I think it's Simnoshka.
Shinoshka. Yeah.
Simnoshka. Yeah. Simnoshka. I truly can't read I was writing very fast.
All these last names, but there are free scores. There are free scores on IMSLP, and very little, actually nothing. She even showed the Google response or the to that question of what analysis is out there. And so finding music, at least, and she acknowledged, at least for another year or two before people start publishing things on that composer, that is not analysis not freely available. So I thought that was great. What do you think, Ben?
Yeah, so many good things to take away from this conference. There's no way we could sum it up, but we'll try to hit some of the main points that I wrote down in my notes. I really liked the inclusion of music from Hispanic and Latin origin and countries and peoples of all kinds. I really liked that. I thought at UNT we are a Hispanic serving institution, so that's something we should be especially attentive to. If you are an HSI out there, I encourage you to reach out to Cynthia Gonzalez and Amy Hatch and Rachel Mann and ask them for a copy of the slides, because not only did they provide a kind of framework for why this is important, but they also gave really good practical examples that are tied to topics that are probably already in your curriculum. So it's really low-hanging fruit, and it's a really good step in the right direction.
For sure. Opinion. And it was everything from stuff you'd be teaching in fundamentals to things that you'd be teaching in Theory 3 or 4 maybe, depending on your curriculum. So that was really fantastic. And I loved what she said about how most HSIs, all you have to do to get that designation is enroll Hispanic students. You don't have to actually serve them. So how can we think about how we're serving that population in our classrooms, especially here in Texas? Most of us have large populations of Hispanic students.
Are we a Hispanic serving institution or just a Hispanic enrolling institution? That was good. That was good. I thought that was a great presentation as well.
Also, for me, the Lipscomb University panel that was, of course, led by our friend of the podcast, Jenny Snodgrass, was really interesting. One of their teachers demonstrated how to use Logic Pro when you're teaching a theory class and suggested some assignments that are in Logic. While I've had my students use Logic Pro in the past and, had them do projects and things and submit via DAWs, I never thought about actually teaching a class with Logic, but it seemed so easy, actually. And it seemed like something that, why wasn't I considering this before? It's because I was just too inside the box. I was too, inside the mold that I didn't think, that wasn't really even there. So I thought I should really do that. I should really teach a class or two, at least, with Logic, and just use that during the class. So I'm going to have to talk to IT and talk about how to hook that up to the recital hall, because I normally use my iPad, so I'll have to get Logic on my iPad, and hopefully that'll
can
work.
Use GarageBand on your iPad.
Oh, there we go. So GarageBand.
A lot of the things that she showed were basically like piano roll notation. So, and I had never thought about this either, but having students create scales on a piano roll in GarageBand, right? I mean, it's so simple. Sometimes when we think, we got to use GarageBand or Logic, it's about composing and processing and all this stuff. Like, no, you can just use. And in fact, Logic was originally a notation program before it became basically what it is today. It was originally kind of like for notating scores. And so, having students write scales with the keyboard or the piano roll. Yeah. And the nice thing is, if they do it wrong, they can get instant feedback.
Yes.
Right? And you get
almost
really
better.
nice. Yeah, you get a nice visual of half steps and whole steps because you can actually see the distance rather than in a 5-line staff where you don't actually get the half steps and the whole steps very clearly represented, right?
Mm-hmm. Actually, that's one of the things when I teach the 5-line staff, I introduce it as being as lacking all of the information that you need to see what's happening visually. So I point out that visual distance on the 5-line staff is not the same as aural distance.
Yeah.
And that's a critical component of understanding how all this goes together. So I thought the same thing. I loved that whole session, really. Everyone who spoke on that session gave us a lot to think about, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the last thing, I tried to boil it down to 3 things for me. But the last one I had was the undergraduate club. Some of you probably know that we had an undergraduate theory club at UNT, which Ellen Bakulina advised for many years, and it kind of dissipated. And I've been doing lots of independent studies, but after listening to Jenny Beavers, I thought, there's something about having all of them together that really allows the ideas to flow and get a lot more diverse types of presentations and a lot more ideas out there. And I thought I really should work towards some sort of undergraduate gathering of some kind, and whether it's an official club or not, maybe we can cross that bridge when we come to it and see how the interest is. But yeah, you gotta have some sort of way of getting beyond what's in the classes. And she talked about how some of her students that were maybe, we'll say, halfway asleep in her 8 a.m. theory, but then they came alive when it was theory club. That was their place to shine. And I thought, that's great. Maybe there'll be people that, weren't as enthused about their core theory or oral skills, but then they have an opportunity to come and talk about something different in theory club, and that would be great. I'd really like to get that back off the ground. She definitely inspired me to do that.
Kudos to her students whose poster, the presentation of their poster, won an honorable mention in the student paper composition, or what am I saying? The student paper award section. But yeah, her undergraduate students who presented their research on a poster there really made an impact.
Yeah, let's give them an official Note Doctor shout out. Yeah, so that was A Study of Harmony, Texture, and Timbre in Popular Culture, undergraduate edition. So that's Alexa Vales, Sophie Anderson, Aiden Ramos, and Leonardo Huerta Lima. Congratulations, folks. That's fantastic.
Great job.
Really
fantastic. So let's turn now to some more bigger picture philosophical ideas that stuck with us. One thing that stuck with me was from that Lipscomb presentation. And for those who may not know, Lipscomb is a small faith-based liberal arts university which has a very large and robust kind of music business, music industry program. It's nestled in Nashville, so it has a lot of folks who are interested in being in that music business side, and a number of the faculty that were there at the presentation kind of come from that perspective. And it was one of those folks, which, let me see if I can find his name here. Why cannot I not read small text anymore? I don't know.
Hashtag in your 40s.
Yep, that's right. We'll cut all of this.
This is what we do. This is a peek behind the curtain. We look back at our notes from these conferences every time we go, and sometimes it's hard to make sense of it.
That's right. So Jeff McPherson, so he was one of the 5 panelists, and he said something to the effect that he is training students for a career in music, not a job in music.
Yes. And
I thought that was such good insight. And of course, he's coming from this professional background where, most working musicians don't have one job. They've got maybe 4, 5, 6 sources of income, right? And that's how you cobble together a life in music or a career in music. But I thought that was a really good perspective. And I think just even the 3 of us, we all teach at a university, but we all sing or play or do things outside of just our teaching. And and that's part of our musical life. And
Mm-hmm.
rather than thinking, okay, you're just going to be a music teacher or a music therapist or this, but can you help them build skills so that they can be diverse musicians and find income streams in a lot of different things. So that's something I'm going to kind of take with me for sure.
In that same presentation, Jenny talked about how they have developed a Bachelor of Music in Performance that includes a commercial track line. And I thought, man, like we couldn't have fathomed that, I don't think, when I was graduating from my undergraduate university. The idea that you could get, say, like a vocal performance degree where your specialty was in commercial music and not, Italian arias. So I think, man, I just was like, we have come such a long way, and that's amazing. And it means that we're training and producing students who have been given skills and the ability to take care of their instruments, whether it's their voice or their, if they're a pianist, their hands, whatever. We have all of this risk of kind of injury from overuse. And that's the big concern when people are not, officially trained to do something, is that they're going to use their instrument in a way that's harmful. So, yeah, there's a lot of exciting things going on there, and I really enjoyed their presentation. The theme of it was one united school of music, because they don't really differentiate or separate out their more traditional, like, music education majors from their commercial students. And a lot of schools do that. They separate them. They're in different theory classes. They're in different, tracks, kind of. My university doesn't do that either. They are all together they take their music core together. They take a lot of their other classes together, and that has been only to the strengths of our, like, that has only fed into the strengths of our program and the kinds of collaborations that we've seen come out of that. Just one big population of musicians, regardless of their future paths, in a room has really produced some incredible student work.
No doubt. I agree 100%. I really enjoyed the Lipscomb panel. It made me think a lot about our integration with jazz studies that we've done in our core theory. It made me think a lot about our new degree in commercial music and what kind of students are going to be entering and what kind of students are going to be leaving that degree, and how do we fit in to that degree path. Where does music theory fit into that? So yeah, and I could relate to several things that Jeff was talking about. Somebody calls you and wants to help out with their wedding, and you think, okay, a slow piano arrangement, okay, Parks and Rec, but it's played on a recording, okay, how do I get this into Logic? And is it going to be too fast, or is it going to be too articulated, and all the things that you have to get done. And everyone's probably had an obscure request from one of their friends that you have to somehow fulfill because you're the one music professional that they know. And they're relying on you to come through and write them a theme song for the latest trailer that they wrote for whatever it is that they're going to publish to YouTube. And you got to do it. They might pay you for it. And that was Jeff's point. It was a point well taken. Point very, very well taken.
Yeah, I made a fair bit of money towards the end of my undergraduate life making string quartet arrangements of like praise songs for my friends' weddings. They're like, can you arrange this Michael W. Smith song for string quartet? I'm like, sure, let's do it. I'll pay you $50. I'm like, all right, that'll be great. Yeah, you never know. So having that wide skill set is really huge. Let's talk also about what's your musical reason? Teaching Analysis and Performance Expressivity by Stacey Davis, another friend of the show. So she was one of 3 great keynote speakers. So we had Betsy Marvin, who gave a great keynote at the beginning, Gordon Sly, who also gave a great keynote wrapping everything up, and then in the middle, Stacey Davis gave this presentation, which I thought was so rich and so it weaved in so many ideas. I have a hard time even articulating all that was in there, but it was so good.
Yeah. She was kind of showing us examples of how we can teach analysis of performance in our classrooms, but that doesn't even say enough about it. And the thing is that it also was just a textbook example of an excellent presentation in general. The way she introduced everything, the way things flowed together, it was so clear and engaging. When she was done, I was like, how did an hour and a half just pass? That's not possible. Yeah. It was so good. And she was also using lots of tools that don't involve standard 5-line notation, right? That bringing these other tools in, or even just students' ears and their conducting, or, something like that, to understand something new about the music. And I really liked that.
Yeah, I was struck by how she integrated performers and performer input into the analysis. And I think, that's one group of students that sometimes is the hardest to grab onto in a theory classroom, right? Because they're like, I should just be practicing right now. Like, why do I have to learn this? I should just be practicing my violin. That'd be better served. But she was able to show how performers need to have these kind of analytical tools, or even ways of thinking about music critically, and how that brings richness and nuance to the performance, and how we as teachers have to, I think maybe listen to our performers more. I think that's one thing I took away from that is, working with, my applied faculty, what do they think about when they're performing music? Because I think I could probably learn a lot from a theoretical aspect from listening to how they approach the music that they're performing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, is that I think several people that teach theory, whether you're a listener of the podcast or not, we say that theory applies to performance. But what are we actually doing? Stacy went the extra mile and went out there and set up these interviews and these questions, specific pieces, and, cataloged that, recorded it so that she could actually show that to her students. And then during the master class, she recorded the master class and the discussion, and then how the playing changed based on the analysis. And it was a really cool extra step. I think, that's the kind of, I guess, primary source or first-hand type of connection to performance that makes your class go to the next level. It's not just saying that you could apply this to performance. It's, okay, well, I did it, and here's what I found out, and here's a video. That's really where people, I think, start to, come alive, and you pique their interest a little bit more. And a lot of times the pieces she was talking about, people had played. It wasn't, repertoire that people would never encounter. It was repertoire that people probably had encountered in their lessons, or orchestra ensemble playing. It was mainly, I think, orchestra or strings type excerpts, but it was really, really good, really focused, but also the conceptual framework was there. How does she picture, let's say, a musical mind? The musical mind has different branches. Well, there's analysis, but that analysis is not like separate from interpretation, which is also not separate from performance, right? These things are like integrated into a whole, and she showed how that actually plays out in different ways. It was very excellent. So congratulations and thank you to Stacy.
I think
great work.
This could fall into the practical category too, because the Moon River, she did this excellent Moon River demonstration where it was 3 different recordings. They're in different meters. And I mean, what a great way to teach meter, and without ever having to look at a piece of paper. That's where a lot of our students get tripped up when it comes to meter. At least in my experience, students don't have a whole lot of trouble feeling it or identifying it when they're hearing it, and experiencing it go by. Where they have trouble is saying 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 yenda, or especially 1 lolly, 2 lolly, those kinds of things. So, yeah, just kudos, Stacy. You're amazing.
Yes. Yeah. So that is a little bit of a wrap up of the conference. And again, if you have a chance to go in the future in 2 years, please do. We'll hopefully see you there. I did chat with David Newman about trying to do a chord singing show at the next one. So along with Akira Sato. Akira, you don't know about this if you're listening, and Cynthia Gonzalez, which would be probably pretty epic. So we'll see if we can work up a proposal in the next 2 years on that. But it's a great time. And again, there's so much there. We just like scratched the surface on what was said and all the wonderful presentations. And so this is just a little amuse-bouche, right? Just to whet your appetite. And so we will be back.
There could even be podcast episodes to come from
Yes.
some of our friends that we were with at the conference.
That's right. And by the way, Jen, do you want to give a little teaser for what we're going to be reading on our second annual Note Doctors book club? We had our first book club last summer where we all read On Music Theory by Phil Ewell. I believe that's the title, On Music Theory, yes. And so we thought we would do another one this summer. And so Jen, tell us a little bit about what we're going to be reading.
Well, Pedagogy into Practice is the perfect context for introducing this book because this author was the keynote at the very first Pedagogy into Practice. I saw him speak there and was just completely blown away, immediately bought his book. So we will be reading What the Best College Teachers Do by Ken Bain this summer.
Yes, so if you haven't gotten that book, go check it out. Go buy a copy of it, and then you can read along with us later this summer as we dig into that wonderful text.